Good morning, everybody. I'm watching a YouTube video this morning. It is the view of Kiev as Russian forces press closer to Ukraine capital. That's by the Washington Post. Started streaming 97 minutes ago, and honestly, I'll tell you, it looks like business as usual. I see cars coming and going, people walking on the street. I don't see any shelling. I don't see any bombed out buildings. All of the stuff I saw in the news last night seems to be non-existent here in this video feed or this live feed. And I just gotta tell you, I don't think what they've been showing on the nightly news is the real thing. I think it's a bunch of hooey. And I almost made some popcorn last night. I don't know why. Almost did. But I'll make this public service announcement this morning. Recently we had a transaction done on our house, and we're supposed to have a line of credit added, and called yesterday to see about using it, and the mortgage officer didn't know anything about it. She said, "We never talked about it." We said, "Yes, we did." She said, "I don't know, I don't think we did." And we said, "Yeah, you told us you would send us checks and card, and now we need to use it, and you're telling us it never happened? You dropped the ball?" "Oh no, we never talked about it." "Oh yeah, we did." And I sent her the letter, and I read her the letter. And so the moral to the story here is, even though you're not a mortgage loan officer, if you're closing on some kind of loan, you make sure the mortgage loan officer knows what they're doing. Because even when they say they do, they may not. And then, when you try to get a tractor, you're screwed. So my dear sweet husband had to roll out another $1,200 bail by himself yesterday, and now his back hurts worse than it did the day before. But God has his reasons for everything, so we'll see what comes of this, what happens. And in the meantime, okay, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but let's look at this. There are cars going in and out of places. There's people walking on the street. It's as if that person down there's walking, not running, right there behind the pole, coming up towards the piece of whatever that is, coming up towards the intersection. There's somebody crossing the street, and they're walking, crossing that street. They're not running. Doesn't look to me like they're in any hurry. Doesn't look to me like anybody's being bombed or shelled. What do you think? I don't know. You can put it in the comments what your opinion is. Oh, look here, I'm sounding like all those other people that irritate me. Put it down in the comments below. Now this morning, besides that little public service announcement and the video live feed of Kiev, I just wanted to say that we are in a time that those of us who pray have only imagined to pray for. And our Lord is really calling everybody out of their hiding places. There are so many of us that have been isolated and stuck back and hidden. And the Lord is calling us out. It's time. It's time. So last night, when I was talking to a friend in text, the Lord reminded me of something He had shown me years and years ago. And it was a pile of diamonds. And see how big that football is over there on that wall hanging? The diamonds were bigger than that. And they were oval shaped, similar to that. Except they were beautiful. They sparkled like the sun. You could see the sky reflecting in it, or in them. And they were piled. There was this huge, huge stack of them, hundreds of them. And the Lord said, "These are my gems, my jewels, my children, my chosen." That's what He sees us as. Beautiful, perfect, spotless diamonds. And let's think about this. Diamonds are formed over years and years of pressure, intense pressure. And I was totally awake when He showed me that vision. And He also showed me another vision one day. And in one of His hands was this beautiful statuette. And in His other hand was another beautiful statuette. And He put them both in the furnace, in the kiln, and He heated them up. And He pulled them out, and one of them was even shinier and more beautiful than before, and the other one had started to slump. And He put them back in the furnace, and He fired it up, and He pulled them out, and the first one was beautiful and radiant and just so glorious, and the other one was just this pile of molten glass. It looked like, I hate to say it, but it looked like a turd. I mean, it wasn't even that pretty. It was dark and just a pile of goo, a glob. And He told me that this was what He was doing. He was refining. And those who were His, and those who gave themselves over to Him, would come out glorious and shining and solid and unbreakable and undefeatable. And those who weren't His, those who chose not to follow in His ways, would end up like that molten pile of blah. And then another day, He showed me a piece of my ceramics in one of His hands. And He had a joint in the other hand. And He lit the joint and He crushed the piece of artwork. And I realized that He was telling me that I could have no part in any kind of drugs in any form, because if I did, He would take my art away from me. Through all these years, I've only had Jesus and what I could do with my hands. And honestly, I just couldn't live without it. I just couldn't. That was like 30 years ago. And you know what's really interesting is over these years, oh, hold on, I have to put my phone down for a minute. Rearrange my. Oh, there we go. I had my computer on my lap this morning. But this was more important than checking those emails. And I totally lost my point while I did it. Well, I suppose it will come back to me here shortly. Oh, Lord, please put it back in my memory if it's something you want me to talk about. Because I do want to talk about what you want me to. And I guess I'll have to come back to it because it's not coming back to me. So, one thing we need to remember is that we can't believe what we see on TV. I realized one day sitting in my living room at my little house that I could not believe anything I see on TV anymore because my pictures weren't on film anymore. Now they were digital, and you can manipulate digital on the computer. And I realized that's it. That's it for me. I cannot believe what I see with my own eyes unless I see it with my own eyes and I don't see it on the television or I don't see it on somebody's video. I have to literally see it with my own eyes to believe it. And you know what's really interesting is right after that epiphany, the Lord started putting me in places and putting me in touch with people. And well, I guess my whole life He's always done that. And I've been some really interesting people. And I may have talked about this before, but about, I don't even want to give years now because the time has just gotten so convoluted. It's hard for me to place time anymore. But I was taking a leather class. It was a leather carving class. And there was this guy in my class who was a president of Chase Bank. And I don't have a filter most times, especially when the Lord tells me, you want to know? Ask. So I asked this guy, I said, so what about all these bankers that are jumping off buildings and committing suicide? He said, yeah. I said, it's not true, is it? He said, well, let's just say I have no intention of committing suicide. So if you see that I have, you let somebody know we had this conversation. He was there to learn how to carve so that he could make a custom leather seat for his Harley. He liked to ride on the weekends. Now, we had a more in-depth conversation, and the takeaway from that was that there were a lot of shady dealings going on, and a lot of people were being taken out of the way. He was thinking he might retire pretty quick or find another line of work, which at the time was pretty smart, because by the time I had talked to him, there were like 5 bankers that had already, quote, committed suicide, end quote. I'm sure that's not what they actually did, but you know. But God has put us in situations and introduced us to people so that we would know at this point in time what was true and what was not. I mean, he prepared us. Just think, when I was a little girl, I wasn't supervised. I would skip school so that I could stay home and watch Sally Jesse Raphael and who were all those talk shows, and General Hospital, All My Children, One Life to Live. I watched all of those soap operas all day, every day, that I could get away with skipping school. Hey, you two, stop that. My little kitten's in heat. She's driving my neutered cat crazy with her cooing and purring to him. I gotta get her fixed next week. But she was sick when she had her last appointment, so I wasn't gonna let him cut her open when she was sick. I'm very protective of my fur babies, especially when God sends them to me. We rescue them. Oh my gosh, this morning my brain is going off in different directions. Lost my train of thought again. Well, I will post this and I'll watch it and see if I can remember what I was talking about, because I really believe there's some important stuff here this morning that the Lord wants me to touch on. God bless you, and be back.